Hey guys, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to the Virtual House Church. I'm your host this week, Jake Grant. And if you didn't know, we are now streaming live on the Virtual House Church YouTube channel. You can go over here and subscribe. We're going to start transitioning from the Rob Skiba channel and start making Virtual House Church kind of its own standalone YouTube channel, very similar to what we did with Skiba News Nation. If you guys are familiar with Jeremiah and I's show, kind of growing that channel. That way, we kind of can protect and preserve Rob's channel and all the great research he's done over the years and help clean it up a little bit and kind of let the Virtual House Church community grow in a kind of an organic way. Um, after Rob passed away, we decided to continue on the Virtual House Church with the blessing of Sheila, and Juan Carlos and I did over a year of tour portions, and now right now Juan's hosting his own Torah portion study on his channel, Light to the Nations, if you want to check that out. But the time we are hosting Virtual House Church kind of conflicted with a home study that he wanted to start doing. So that's why we haven't seen Juan for a while, for those of you who have been asking. But this week, I have a lot of music for you guys. And the Torah portion we're going to be covering is Vayakhel. It's the second to the last one in Exodus, and it covers Exodus 35, 1 through 38. And so we'll be studying through that, listening to the audio recording. We'll be listening to a really cool song. I played it last week. It's by Bim Bam or something, kind of like a Jewish learning channel. But it's this really beautiful song about the willing hearts of the people as they bring the gifts for the creation of the tabernacle and all of the things that go into it. Now, if you're new to Torah portion studies, why do we study this? It's a cyclical pattern of study that you do over the course of a year, where you study all the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, and then we connect that in our Virtual House Church study with the prophetic writings, the Psalms, and the New Testament portion as well. And so in the Torah portion workbook, and if you haven't joined or checked out the Virtual House Church website yet, the Torah portion workbooks that Rob has here, and if you want to get one of these, it's a great way to support Sheila. He has questions at the end of each portion, and it's a really great way each year to add new revelations and thoughts. But he asks in here, how do these portions and the things we're learning about relate to these other writings? And what's something new you learn each year? And I think it's really cool. We're coming into the season of Pesach, Passover, very soon. People will be celebrating it in April timeframe, early April for us. And I love to look at the Sabbaths during the year, right? You have the weekly Sabbath, where during the week, you go home and you study the word, you learn about the Most High and how to apply his ways in your life. And then when you gather together at that appointed time on the Sabbath with your family or with your local fellowship, you share these revelations. And that's what's so beautiful, and how oftentimes the Holy Spirit, the Most High, can lead and guide your discussions and your conversations, because we're each revealed different things to during the week, and we bring that all to the table during the Sabbath. And then during the yearly Sabbaths, right, the Pesach, the feast of Pentecost, you have the Feast of Trumpets, Tabernacles. These are the times where all of these small local fellowships gather with much larger groups. And so it's really cool how people bring revelation, that he's revealing to them deep, deep things about him and his word, and how to walk out our faith more like Yeshua, more like the Messiah, who is our example, right? And that's why it's so cool to do these type of studies. And so let's go ahead and play some music. I got quite a bit of music for you guys this week, and I'm really excited to share this first song, which is Psalm 119, the first portion of Psalm 119, verse 1, right? Verse 1 through 9-ish, I think. And it's it's a Zion Mountain Press or something. I'll share the link in the chat as it's playing. It's a beautiful kind of song version of the Psalms. And because we've come to this understanding that the Torah is our instructions, it's not law as in like, hey, a bad thing. it's instructions. It's a gift that the Most High gave his people because he loves us, and he wants us to live within his kind of guidelines to be blessed, because whenever we fall short and we disobey or we break his commandments, his law, that is what sin is. And sin brings a curse. And of course, the Messiah and being redeemed comes with that guilt of all our past sins being taken off of our conscience, so we can start walking forward, picking ourselves up with repentance, and then moving in that other direction. But it's just so beautiful to know that he's given us his Torah, his commandments, including keeping the Sabbath, with what many of us are doing today, and studying and learning about these commandments and these things that he commanded the Israelites, that all of these contain little tidbits of his character. And Yahushua, who was the Word made flesh, right? He came and he manifested the truth that to love God is to keep his commandments, right? And so let me go ahead and play this song. And I hope you guys enjoy it.
Blessed are they whose ways are blameless, who walk according to the law of the Lord. Blessed are they who keep his statutes and seek him with all of their heart. They do nothing wrong, they walk in his ways. You have laid down precepts to be fully obeyed. Oh, that my ways were steadfast in obeying all your decrees. Then I would not be put to shame when I consider your commands. I will praise you with an upright heart as I learn your righteous laws. I will obey all your decrees. Not utterly, do not utterly forsake me.
All right. So I love those. I remember way back in like 2015, 2016, when I first started to realize the significance of keeping our Father's commands. I used to put these Psalm 119s to song on a replete playlist and fall asleep to it. I've probably listened to those songs hundreds of times. Um, I mean, David, a man after Yah's own heart, right? He wrote these songs, and you really understand why the Most High was so in love with David, right? So protecting of him and providing all these amazing miracles and blessings, kind of keeping him alive, and then giving him the honor of becoming king over Israel. It's so amazing that he wrote down just that love for the commandments, And I feel like it's lost on our generation, just the focus and importance of focusing on the Father's ways. And we usually start off explaining, hey, look, I'm not a pastor, I'm just a fellow student with you guys. But if anything I could impart to you guys would be this, is that if we can all full-heartedly fall in love with the Father's commandments, which is the love of God, right? To keep his commandments, then man, just think about how your life becomes kingdom oriented. When the things that you want line up with what he wants, it turns your whole world upside down, because you're not seeking after, oh, what Ferrari is going to make me happy? What's going to fill that big empty hole? Instead, when the desires of your heart become his desires, it's a totally different game, and that's when you really start living the kingdom in your life. So it's every opportunity to love your neighbor, every opportunity to love the Most High, and then you start applying that, and it's a game changer. And so we have our next song here from our friends Lyndon and Ruth of Left and Right Ministries. And Be careful, Yah's people, to keep all of his ways is this song. Very awesome group here. Hope you guys enjoy this next one.
Be careful, Yah's people, to follow all of his ways. Be careful, Yah's people, to follow all of his ways. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. So be careful, Yah's people, to follow all of his ways. Be careful, Yah's people, to follow all of his ways. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. You must walk in all of his ways. The Yahuwah your Elohim commanded, that you may live a long and prosperous life for all of your days in the land which you inherit. Be careful, Yah's people, to follow all of his ways. Be careful, Yah's people, to follow all of his ways. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. Walk in all of his ways. The Yahuwah your Elohim commanded, that you may live a long and prosperous life for all of your days in the land which you inherit. So you gotta be careful, God's people, to follow all of his ways. Be careful, God's people, to follow all of his ways. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. You are not to turn aside to the left or to the right. 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 To the left or to the right.
All right. What an awesome song. Really excited. We're going out to Pesach in Missouri for the POTV kind of festival there, doing Passover with these guys, and looking forward to some of that live music. And of course, you guys can look into that if you would like to participate for the 2023 Passover there in Lebanon, Missouri. Just look up POTV 2023 Passover. on Google or whatnot. Anyways, where were we at here? Yeah, so if you guys aren't familiar, go ahead and make sure to try to join the Discord after these little read through, kind of brief overview Virtual House Church sessions. We have great discussion in the Discord. I've joined several times recently and just been blown away by the intelligent, well articulated people there that are all kind of digging into the word together. And I got one more song from Lyndon and Ruth, and then we'll kind of start moving towards the actual tour portion. So here's one more from Left and Right Ministries.
We will remember the works of your hands through all generations. We've seen your plan to bring back the fold and make us whole again. Oh yeah, by the blood of your Son, we've been grafted in. Oh, merciful Yah, how awesome is your love. Oh, merciful Yah, your Son laid down his life to redeem this broken bride. Oh, the deep gratitude we have for your Son, who gathers the weary and broken and shows them all your love. How lovely is the groom who calls for his sons and daughters. Oh yeah, we offer up our lives like sheep on the altar. Oh, merciful Yah, how awesome is your love. Oh, merciful Yah, your Son laid down his life to redeem this broken bride. And if not for Yeshua, we would all be dead in sin, not alive in grace. And if not for Yeshua, we would never know the way, the truth, the light. And if not for Yeshua, we would all be dead in sin, not alive in grace. And if not for Yeshua, we would never know the way, the truth, the light. And if not for Yeshua, we would all be dead in sin, not alive in grace. And if not for Yeshua, Oh, merciful Yah, your Son laid down his life. Your Son laid down his life. Oh, your Son laid down his life to redeem this broken bride.
All right. So once again, Left and Right Ministries. And so we're going to go ahead and play the Parsha in 60 seconds and get into the Torah portion for this week. And before I do, if you guys are ever wondering what Torah portion we're on, I'm usually following the First Fruits of Zion's website kind of cycle. They update the front page every week for what portion there is. And of course, they have here the half Torah, the reading in First Kings, and also a portion in the Gospels. And also you can use the resources over here on the Virtual House Church website. Go to vhc.fmawakening.com or just go to virtualhousechurch.com and click one of the links. It'll automatically take you here. And you can go down here and click Exodus Studies. And we are down here in Vayakhel. And we have some really interesting resources that I wanted to check out here. This is, of course, getting into the creation of the tabernacle and the free will gift offerings. Here's some of our episodes we've done in previous years covering this Torah portion, and of course all the way back to 2014 2013 audio recording. 2014's got some great content as well. I remember watching these years ago and learning so much from Rob. But as we always like to do, Rob usually played these portions 60 seconds. For those of you who didn't do your homework, and didn't read up, this is a little reminder of what is in the Torah portion. But of course, we're playing the audio, so you're going to eventually hear the whole breakdown. But I love how funny and fast-paced it is. And here we go.
And welcome to Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Exodus 35:1 through 38:20. It is called Vayakhel, which means, and he assembled. The Israelites are prepping to build the tabernacle. Moses reminds them of God's commandment to keep the Sabbath of complete rest. Gifts of materials from those whose hearts so moved them were collected: gold, silver, copper, colored yarn, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, acacia wood, olive oil, spices, lapis lazuli, and other precious stones were gathered. Skilled workers were invited to make the tabernacle, its furnishings, and the priest's gear. Gifts were brought. Bezalel and Aholiab were God-gifted craftsmen and were charged to construct the tabernacle. The Israelites gave generously to the collection. The skilled workers began their projects. They made the tabernacle's boards, silver sockets, bars of acacia wood, rings of gold, veiled pillars of acacia wood, screen for the door, and sockets of brass. Bezalel made the ark, cover, and table, the menorah and incense altar, and the altar of sacrifice, laver, and enclosure for the tabernacle. And that is Vayakhel in 60 seconds.
Very interesting. Man, this is such an interesting story of how these two guys were just inspired by the Most High to become master craftsmen, to be able to hammer all these things out of pure beaten works of gold. And it's just so interesting. Now, what I'm about to play is actually not been released yet. This is the next edition of the Word Audio. I've just completed the entire book of Exodus just this week. So these final two portions for this week and next week are actually not even out there online yet. So you guys are going to get a treat to hear the audio drama, the Word Audio that my friend Adam and I work on. And hope you guys enjoy. So here is Torah portion Vayakhel.
Shemot, Exodus chapter 35. And Moshe gathered all the assembly of the children of Yisrael together, and said unto them, These are the words which Yahweh has commanded, that ye should do them. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be to you a holy day, a Shabbat of rest to Yahweh. Whosoever does work thereon shall be put to death. Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath. And Moshe spoke unto all the assembly of the children of Yashrael, saying, This is the thing which Yahweh commanded, saying, Take ye from among you an offering unto Yahweh. Whosoever is of a willing heart, let him bring it, an offering of Yahweh, gold and silver and brass, and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair, and ram skins dyed red, and badger skins, and shittim wood, and oil for the light, and spices for anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, and onyx stones, and stones to be set for the ephod, and for the breastplate. And every wise-hearted among you shall come, and make all that Yahweh has commanded: the tabernacle, his tent, and his covering, his taches, and his boards, his bars, his pillars, and his sockets, the ark, and the staves thereof, with the mercy seat, and the veil of covering, the table, and his staves, and all his vessels, and the showbread, the menorah, also for the light, and his furniture, and his lamps, with the oil for the light, and the incense altar, and his staves, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the hanging for the door at the entering in of the tabernacle, the altar of burnt offering, with his brazen grate, his staves, and all his vessels, the laver and his foot, the hangings of the court, his pillars, and their sockets, and the hanging for the door of the court, the pins of the tabernacle, and the pins of the court, and their cords, the cloths of service, to do service in the holy place, the holy garments for Aharon the priest, and the garments of his sons, to minister in the priest's office. And all the assembly of the children of Yashrael departed from the presence of Moshe. And they came, everyone whose heart stirred him up, and everyone whom his ruach made willing, and they brought Yahweh's offering to the work of the tabernacle of the assembly, and for all his service, and for the holy garments. And they came, both men and women, as many as were willing-hearted, and brought bracelets and earrings and rings and tablets, all jewels of gold. And every man that offered an offering of gold unto Yahweh. And every man with whom was found blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair and red skins of rams and badger skins brought them. Everyone that did offer an offering of silver and brass brought Yahweh's offering. And every man with whom was found shittim wood for any work of the service brought it. And all the women that were wise-hearted did spin with their hands, and brought that which they had spun, both of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, and of fine linen. And all the women whose heart stirred them up in wisdom spun goat's hair. And the rulers brought onyx stones, and stones to be set for the ephod and for the breastplate, and spice, and oil for the light, and for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense. The children of Yashrael brought a willing offering unto Yahweh, every man and woman, whose heart made them willing to bring for all the manner of work, which Yahweh had commanded to be made by the hand of Moshe. And Moshe said unto the children of Yashrael, See, Yahweh has called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Horai, of the tribe of Yehudah, and he has filled him with the Ruach Elohim, in wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship, and to devise curious works, to work in gold, and in silver, and in brass, and in the cutting of stones, to set them, and in carving of wood, to make any manner of cunning work. And he has put in his heart that he may teach both he and Aholiab, the son of Achisamach, of the tribe of Dan. Them has he filled with wisdom of heart, to work all manner of work, of the engraver, and of the cunning workman, and of the embroiderer, in blue, and in purple, in scarlet, and in fine linen, and of the weaver, even of them that do any work, and of those that devise cunning work. Shemot, Exodus chapter 36. Then wrought Bezalel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man, in whom Yahweh put wisdom and understanding, to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, according to all that Yahweh had commanded. And Moshe called Bezalel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man, in whose heart Yahweh had put wisdom, even everyone whose heart stirred him up to come unto the work to do it. And they received of Moshe all the offering, which the children of Yashrael had wrought for the work of the service of the sanctuary, to make it withal. And they brought yet unto him free offerings every morning. And all the wise men that wrought all the work of the sanctuary came every man from his work which they had made. And they spoke unto Moshe, saying,
The people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which Yahuwah commanded to make.
And Moshe gave commandment, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying,
Let neither man nor woman make any more work for the offering of the sanctuary.
So the people were restrained from bringing, for the stuff they had was sufficient for all the work to make it, and too much. And every wise-hearted man among them that wrought the work of the tabernacle made 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue, and purple, and scarlet. With cherubim of cunning work made he them. The length of one curtain was 28 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits. The curtains were all of one size. And he coupled the 5 curtains one unto another, and the other 5 curtains he coupled one unto another. And he made loops of blue on the edge of one curtain from the selvage in the coupling. Likewise, he made in the uttermost side of another curtain in the coupling of the second. 50 loops made he in one curtain, and 50 loops made he in the edge of the curtain which was in the coupling of the second. The loops held one curtain to another. He made 50 taches of gold, and coupled the curtains one unto another with the taches. So it became one tabernacle. And he made curtains of goat's hair for the tent over the tabernacle. 11 curtains he made them. The length of one curtain was 30 cubits, and 4 cubits was the breadth of one curtain. 11 curtains were of one size. And he coupled the 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. And he made 50 loops upon the uttermost edge of the curtain in the coupling, and 50 loops made he upon the edge of the curtain which couples the second. And he made 50 taches of brass to couple the tent together, that it might be one. And he made a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, and a covering of badger skins above that. And he made the boards for the tabernacle of shittim wood, standing up. The length of a board was 10 cubits, and the breadth of a board 1 cubit and a half. One board had 2 tenons, equally distant one from another. Thus did he make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And he made the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side, southward. And 40 sockets of silver he made under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. And for the other side of the tabernacle, which is toward the north corner, he made 20 boards. And there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. And for the sides of the tabernacle westward, he made 6 boards. And 2 boards made he for the corners of the tabernacle in the 2 sides. And they were coupled beneath, and coupled together at the head thereof, to one ring. Thus he did to both of them in both of the corners. And there were 8 boards, and their sockets were 16 sockets of silver, and under every board 2 sockets. And he made bars of shittim wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the tabernacle for the sides westward. And he made the middle bar to shoot through the boards from the one end to the other. And he overlaid the boards with gold, and made their rings of gold, to be places for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. And he made a veil of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. With cherubim he made it of cunning work. And he made thereunto 4 pillars of shittim wood, and overlaid them with gold. Their hooks were of gold. And he cast for them 4 sockets of silver. And he made a hanging for the tabernacle door of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen of needlework. And the 5 pillars of it, their hooks, and he overlaid their chapiters and their fillets with gold. But their 5 sockets were of brass. Shemot, Exodus chapter 37. And Bezalel made the ark of shittim wood. 2 cubits and a half was the length of it, and a cubit and a half the breadth of it, and a cubit and a half the height of it. And he overlaid it with pure gold, within and without, and made a crown of gold to it round about. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold, to be set by the 4 corners of it, even 2 rings upon the one side of it, and 2 rings upon the other side of it. And he made staves of shittim wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he put the staves into the rings by the sides of the ark, to bear the ark. And he made the mercy seat of pure gold. 2 cubits and a half was the length thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth thereof. And he made 2 cherubim of gold, beaten out of one piece made he them, on the 2 ends of the mercy seat, 1 cherub on the end of this side, and another cherub on the other end of that side. Out of the mercy seat made he the cherubim on the 2 ends thereof. And the cherubim spread out their wings on high, and covered with their wings over the mercy seat, with their faces one to another, even to the mercy seatward were the faces of the cherubim. And he made the table of shittim wood. 2 cubits was the length thereof, and a cubit the breadth thereof, and a cubit and a half the height thereof. And he overlaid it with pure gold, and made thereunto a crown of gold round about. Also he made thereunto a border of a handbreadth round about, and made a crown of gold for the border thereof round about. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings upon the 4 corners that were in the 4 feet thereof. Over against the border were the rings, the places for the staves to bear the table. And he made the staves of shittim wood, and overlaid them with gold, to bear the table. And he made the vessels which were upon the table, his dishes, and his spoons, and his bowls, and his covers to cover withal of pure gold. And he made the menorah of pure gold, of beaten work he made the menorah, his shaft, and his branch, his bowls, his knops, and his flowers were of the same. And 6 branches going out of the sides thereof, 3 branches of the menorah out of the one side thereof, and 3 branches of the menorah out of the other side thereof. 3 bowls made after the fashion of almonds in one branch, a knop and a flower, and 3 bowls made like almonds in another branch, a knop and a flower. So throughout the 6 branches going out of the menorah. And in the menorah were 4 bowls made like almonds, his knops and his flowers, and a knop under 2 branches of the same, and a knop under 2 branches of the same, and a knop under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches going out of it. Their knops and their branches were of the same. All of it was one beaten work of pure gold. And he made his 7 lamps, and his snuffers, and his snuff dishes of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold made he it, and all the vessels thereof. And he made the incense altar of shittim wood. The length of it was a cubit, and the breadth of it a cubit. It was 4 square. 2 cubits was the height of it. The horns thereof were of the same. And he overlaid it with pure gold, both the top of it and the sides thereof round about. And the horns of it also he made unto it a crown of gold round about. And he made 2 rings of gold for it under the crown thereof, by the 2 corners of it, upon the 2 sides thereof, to be places for the staves to bear it withal. And he made the staves of shittim wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he made the holy anointing oil, and the pure incense of sweet spices, according to the work of the apothecary. Shemot, Exodus chapter 38. And he made the altar of burnt offering of shittim wood. 5 cubits was the length thereof, and 5 cubits the breadth thereof. It was 4 square, and 3 cubits the height thereof. And he made the horns thereof on the 4 corners of it. The horns thereof were of the same, and he overlaid it with brass. And he made all the vessels of the altar, the pots, and the shovels, and the basins, and the flesh hooks, and the fire pans, all the vessels thereof he made of brass. And he made for the altar a brazen grate of network under the compass thereof, beneath unto the midst of it. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 ends of the grate of brass, to be places for the staves. And he made the staves of shittim wood, and overlaid them with brass. And he put the staves into the rings on the sides of the altar, to bear it withal. He made the altar hollow with boards. And he made the laver of brass, and the foot of it brass, of the looking glasses of the women assembling, which assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the assembly. And he made the court on the south side southward. The hangings of the court were of fine twined linen, 100 cubits. Their pillars were 20, and their brazen sockets 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the north side the hangings were 100 cubits. Their pillars were 20, and their sockets of brass 20. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the west side were hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the east side, eastward, 50 cubits. The hangings of the one side of the gate were 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And for the other side of the court gate, on this hand and on that hand, were hangings of 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. All the hangings of the court round about were of fine twined linen, and the sockets for the pillars were of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver, and the overlaying of their chapiters of silver, and all the pillars of the court were filleted with silver. And the hanging for the gate of the court was needlework of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen, and 20 cubits was the length, and the height in the breadth was 5 cubits, answerable to the hangings of the court. And their pillars were 4, and their sockets of brass 4, their hooks of silver, and the overlaying of their chapiters and their fillets of silver. And all the pins of the tabernacle and of the court round about were of brass.
Okay, so that was the word audio rendering of Vayakhel. That's Adam and I, our kind of little project there. But anyways, let's go ahead and check out the Virtual House Church website and see if there's any resources on this Torah portion from previous years that might be worth mentioning. Of course, the videos, if you guys have free time. I love the Way Biblical Fellowship. Probably one of the most in-depth studies on various Torah portions. I mean, I think he's a lawyer by trade, JP. So just a lot of respect for JP and Charlie. They have some really great in-depth teachings. Sometimes their portions are like 3 or 4 hours long. So just get ready to take a lot of notes because they got some great stuff if you ever want to really go deep. But there's a lot of different channels out there and stuff. But anyways, I saw some people had some comments. There was a really good one that I wanted to highlight to you. Let me see here. Oh, man, it was very interesting. Let me see. It was in relation to how the tabernacle has a parallel. I'm just checking the chat here. Oh, here we go. The tabernacle and then the temple were a prelude to the seat of Christ and a copy of the true temple in heaven. Yeah, so it's a great reminder that all of these things and the very specific commands of how they were to build it and construct it, these were patterns that were shown to Moshe on the mount after the tabernacle in heaven, right? Which is super interesting to think about. And it's important, I guess, that they followed all of these things to a T. And then you'll find out that, because they obeyed perfectly, that Moshe blessed them. He inspected everything and they followed his commandments word for word. Let me see here. Something that's interesting about this Torah portion is once again, right? It revives at the beginning of the portion. We see here it reinstates and re-mentions the whole premise of the Sabbath. And I believe this is maybe the 6th or 7th time that the Sabbath is talked about and given as instructions. We have way back in Genesis 1, right? Fast forward, the next time I believe is the manna from heaven in around Exodus chapter 15. I'm probably missing that reference, but as they're exiting Egypt, they're fed from manna, and they're told to not gather on the seventh day, but to collect twice as much on the sixth day, and it'll get them through the Shabbat. So we have Exodus 20, the actual big fourth commandment of the Big Ten, as he shouts it down from the mountain at them. You have a repeat in Exodus 25 about the Sabbath. We have a mention of it again here. So many times. What an important commandment. He is repeating it over and over, this topic of the Sabbath. And this is, of course, is before we get into this topic of the contribution. So I wanted to look at this just for a second. And one thing I love to do, if you guys are wanting to get into a deeper way of studying the language and the words, a great tool is the Blue Letter Bible, blueletterbible.org. And whenever somebody asks me about why do you keep the Sabbath, Christians keep Sunday. Sunday has replaced the Sabbath. Why would you do that? Well, I love to show them the numbers. All right. And it's one of the most interesting things, because when you type in Sabbath, right, we have here right at the top, you get a number of it occurring over 137 times in 116 verses in the King James. All right. And if you're not aware, even the apostles, there's over, I believe it's close to 50 plus examples of the apostles post Christ's resurrection and, Pentecost, that they kept and celebrated the Sabbaths. But you kind of have to read in between the lines. Like it'll say, and Paul met with them on the Sabbath for the next 3 years. And if you add those up, they were keeping the Sabbath regularly. But just the number of times Sabbath is mentioned in all these variety of places, and how it's called a sign, a mark. It's a important commandment to the Most High. Very obviously, as we talked about in last week's Torah portion, I read a little bit about Isaiah 56 and the strangers, and we shared that video, the Sabbath controversy that I made several years ago. So suffice it to say, it is a well talked about commandment throughout the scriptures, including the New Testament, where Christ would go to the synagogue on the Sabbath, as was his custom. He declared himself the Lord of the Sabbath, right? Well, they were adding man-made traditions to what you can and can't do. And that doesn't take away from the fact that it's still a commandment, right? But if we were compared this to first day of the week, which in all intents and purposes is Sunday, right? And of course, skipping past all the kind of let's limit our search results to the New Testament. It's been a while since I've done this, so I'm having some issues here. Advanced options. Hold on. First day, advanced options from Matthew on to Revelation. So we have the argument that the first day of the week replaced Sabbath. And yet nowhere in the scriptures do you see that. Nowhere do you see a commandment to keep the first day of the week as a new Sabbath or a replacement Sabbath. Or, we do see them meeting on the first of the week, but the vast majority of times that the first day is mentioned, it was actually Mary Magdalene and the other Mary running to see the empty grave. So if we were to sum up all the times that they actually met on the first day and compare that to the number of times that they kept the Sabbath, it's a very disproportionate number. And of course, nowhere is it a command. It's just whenever you get into the numbers, guys, which is why I like doing these word searches on Blue Letter Bible, you'll find that the numbers don't prove the new doctrine. And in vain do they worship me, teaching for commandments the traditions of man, right? Which is what we've inherited, unfortunately, from the modern church. People passing down in innocence, keeping in ignorance traditions such as not keeping a Sabbath, not fellowshipping or meeting or resting on the Sabbath, and instead saying, oh, Sunday is the new Sabbath, or it doesn't matter what day you keep a Sabbath as long as you keep one in general, which I believe would be a contradiction to what we see in the Word of the importance of keeping the Sabbath. Back to our Torah portion, of course, being he busts open saying, hey, here's another reminder. If you haven't heard it enough, the Sabbath is very important. Anyways, let me go back to our portion here. And there's something interesting that I love to point out. And this is something that is kind of a spiritual application of a commandment for the Sabbath. And this is a realm for discussion. The topic of you shall kindle no fire in all your dwelling places on the Sabbath day. Some people believe that, oh, it's okay if we use our stove, or we just aren't supposed to kindle in terms of go out there and work real hard to spark up a fire. Some people, like the Orthodox, they don't believe you can even flip a light switch on because that little spark of electricity is considered fire for them. So that I would love to maybe have you guys get into discussion with one another. What does it mean about not kindling a fire in your dwelling places? But somebody kind of interpreted a spiritual application to me of this verse of not kindling a fire being related in a way also not to just going out there and chopping down a tree, which is the first example of somebody breaking the Sabbath and the guy getting stoned. The language of him going and gathering wood was more like a rebellious person who, in the face of knowing what the commandment was to rest and to keep it holy, went out there and start chopping trees down. I mean, this was no guy just picking up a few sticks. This is somebody who was rebelliously trying to say, I don't care what you say, Moshe or Elohim. I'm not doing what you want. And so that kindling, gathering sticks on the Sabbath, or that guy was stoned, was much more extreme than often is made fun of by Christian pastors today, who are like, oh, look, we don't stone people for picking up a stick on the Sabbath today. That's, but I'm getting rambly here, but kindling a fire could it in a way also be related to relationships, not fighting, starting a little fire in your home on the Sabbath. Somebody told me once that it's not just the physical work, but it's also in our relationships and how we're respecting and setting the Sabbath apart. Are you, fighting with your spouse? Oftentimes I feel like the most temptation to fight with my wife comes, right around the Sabbath. It's like the enemy wants to steal our peace, steal the focus on the Most High. And, some of these are worth discussing, but I wanted to share that thought process to you guys because there's deeper concepts to this than just the literal application, which of course sometimes the greatest faith is whenever we apply commandments in our life without fully understanding them, because we just trust in the commandment giver. So anyways, somebody was asking about the two lawyers. It's JP and Charlie of the Way Biblical Fellowship. Yaya, if you're curious. Somebody was asking who I was mentioning earlier that does Torah portions. But anyways, now we're going to get into the contributions for the tabernacle. And guys, there is such an interesting tie with, I think, a parable that Christ gives and the skills and talents that Oholiav and Bezalel apply to the creation of the tabernacle. And I believe it's a spiritual metaphor for our gifts and talents today to be used for the building of his kingdom in our world today, right? And so let me go ahead and read you this parable of the talents in Matthew 25, verse 14. Parable of the talents. For it will be like a man. Now he's, just to give some insight, they're talking about the kingdom of heaven, and this is, started off by the wise virgins and the 5 foolish virgins that took no oil. And there's different interpretations of what the oil in these first couple verses are in the parable of the 10 virgins. But I've come to believe that it's obedience to his word, and that oil, through tribulation, that oil is pressed out of the grapes, through pressure, and that is perseverance in the face of adversity, right? Some people have interpreted it being the Holy Spirit. Go ahead and plug and play your understanding of the parable of the 10 virgins, but this leads into this next parable, which is the parable of the talents, talking about the kingdom of heaven, once again, context-wise. Then it goes in to say, for it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and had made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master, those servants came and settled accounts for them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents. Here I've made 2 talents more. Master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over little. I will set you over much. Enter in the house of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I have scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested your money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness, in the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And now, why I'm relating this in an interesting way to our Torah portion with the skills and talents, like the physical talent of Oholiab and Bezalel, right, was what if we were to read this parable with the definition of literally, instead of a weight or of measure of currency, we read it as a natural aptitude or skill, God-given talents, your abilities, the things that you have a natural propensity to excel in, whether you're a singer, an artist, a filmmaker, a YouTuber, whoever. And if you were to apply that in your building of the kingdom of heaven, you then would inspire interest, right? You would inspire more people with their talents to then use those talents for the kingdom of heaven, right? And so in the way that Bezalel and Oholiab took their talent and they went and made these beautiful instruments to the tabernacle, how amazing would it be that, we in today's world use our talents, the talents he gives us. Some have less, some have more, but all are given something, right? And went out and applied those to building the kingdom of heaven, to being his emissaries, to being his ambassadors here in creation. How beautiful, right? And so that's just a little breakdown of this topic, and it ties to the free will of the people who then bring their gifts to the tabernacle that we're about to hear. I'm going to play this beautiful song that I played last week just because it's so awesome, of the willing heart of the people to bring these gifts. And so in today's world, if we have a willing heart to use our talents, our gifts, right, and then offer them to the Most High to be used for His kingdom and His will, then that's what He's looking for. He's looking for those whose heart seek first the kingdom of heaven, right? And man, this little song here from Bim Bam I played last week is so it gets me almost emotional. It's just beautiful about the willingness of the heart. And if we can take inspiration from this portion of the people who brought all of their precious things willingly, and then we apply that to our life, of how can we bring the things that are precious to us willingly. What a lesson to learn. So hope you guys enjoy this little song here of I'm just gonna stop talking. Check this out.
Wise-hearted men, wise-hearted women, bring what you can, silver and linen, wool of crimson and of blue, and the bodies I gave you. Build me a tent that I can dwell in, incense and oil and precious stones. And when you walk, I'll walk beside you, and where you live will be my home. Guide them well, build me a place to dwell, make me a lamp with 7 branches from a single piece of gold, 7 arms like almond blossoms, from their petals fire will glow. Make me an altar of acacia, on the corners place 4 rings. Make me a pair of golden angels to guard my words beneath their wings. Fill them with love, make me a place to live. Melt down your copper mirrors to make a sacred bowl, and fill it up with holy water to wash your bodies and your souls. Weave me a cloth with angels' faces, just as fine as thread can sew. And when I see how they surround me, I will know that I am home. Wise-hearted men, wise-hearted women, bring what you can, silver and linen.
All right. So I have a hunch that these things that are being brought for the tabernacle, there is something more metaphorical to them than meets the eye. There's something that applies to our walk as believers. You hear it that we're now the temple, right? That the Spirit dwells in, and the whole aspect of them bringing these gifts willingly is so beautiful to me, and why I love playing that song. It's just, you know, what are we bringing willingly and free will? People talk about sacrifices. Oh, the sacrifices are done away with. We don't need sacrifices anymore, right? But they don't realize that there's more than just a sin sacrifice. There's the sacrifice of free will offerings. There's the peace offering. There's the fellowship meal. There, like, things in our life that we sacrifice for the Most High, are you know sometimes people, if they want to start observing the Sabbath, right, that's a sacrifice to start to separate from jobs that might pay you more, but they require you to break that commandment. That's a type of sacrifice. There's many types of sacrifices, and he prefers obedience over the blood of bulls and goats, right? And so could our walk and the things we do in our life to be honoring to the Most High, how we love our neighbor, how we love him, be some of these, metaphorical gems and jewels and precious things that we are presenting to the Most High in a free will sort of way. And now let me jump over here once again to the website. There's a couple other things about this Torah portion that are kind of interesting. Um, when constructing the tabernacle, if you haven't heard this concept, you might find it interesting. There's another perspective of what the tabernacle actually looked like. And Project 314 proposes that the historical opinion of what the tabernacle looked like could be wrong. Now, in the traditional model of the square building with the square tents around it, they're actually, to make a stable structure. A square is actually one of the most unstable structures in nature. It would require more things than are actually listed in the instructions of building it. And it seems to me like the Most High gave very clear, explicit instructions of how to build the tabernacle, and so the extra supporting mechanisms, extra things to keep it all together would be required. There's a lot of redundancy in the way the fabrics are put together, overlapping. So Andy Hoy put together this idea of Project 314. Now you can check this out at project314.org. And it looks like he's got some interesting, events going on here. But just another perspective of how these things could have been applied. The specific instructions could be applied and without using extra material or without wasting any material. And whenever you fasten the curtains a certain way, it actually creates a domed type structure, far more imposing in the landscape. And also, if you can imagine all the nations that would look at these tabernacle in the midst of the tribes of Israel, the light and the fire that was continually to burn within it would make this thing glow like a giant lantern in the middle of the night. And so, you think about the words of Balaam the prophet, who was oh, how beautiful are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacle, O Israel, right? So this is just a theory, but it doesn't contradict or break anything. It just simply connects the curtain fabric in the long side, not the short side, or maybe the long side, the short side, not the long side, which is an interesting perspective. Very interesting. So worth checking out. It's tied to this Torah portion because, of course, we're looking at the things that have been added. And of course, the traditional tabernacle looked like this, and these are all the things that the people would have added: the curtain and the various instruments. And then we get into the breastplate and the things that were given by the leaders of the tribes. The rulers, it says, brought these precious stones to be given to build, for them to build the breastplate that would represent the 12 tribes. And of course, this is always super interesting when you look at how each stone, each color, what it might stand for. Let me see here. The girdle is a type of believers always ready, waiting, humility in character, and willing to serve. Yeshua displayed in John 13:4-10 the washing of the Talmudim's feet, and in Revelation 1:13 we see him in a golden girdle atoning for sinful heart. Very interesting. We saw there, the basin to wash in. The incense of fragrance full of enjoyment of his glory. Yahuwah's copyright, right? You can't recreate these very precious incense. You have here, we're going to learn in more detail in next week's Torah portion, some of the priestly garments for Aaron and his sons. For the stones, it mentions specifically, let me just look here. It mentions specifically the let me see. Stone. All right, so it mentions the onyx stones and stones for setting for the ephod. And I always thought it was interesting how it mentions the onyx stones as like its own separate thing. But I guess the onyx stones are on the shoulders, and then the other stones were the ones that are on the breastplate. And let me just look here. This is what the possible look of the Ark of the Covenant would be. We got the Indiana Jones looking one, and a giant oversized menorah in Israel. For those of you who are familiar with the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, the Hanukkah is not a menorah. It's got 9 candle branches, which represents the 9 nights that a 7 candle branch menorah stayed lit in that tradition. So if you've ever seen the Jewish Hanukkah, that's not what a menorah actually is supposed to look like. It's supposed to have 7 candlesticks. And supposedly this is where they would be constructing all this stuff on Google Maps near Jabal al-Lulz, which is in Saudi Arabia. So all of the gifts that the Egyptians gave to the Israelites and sent them on their way when they were coming out as slaves, they had so many precious things and jewels and gold that Oholiab and Bezalel had to tell Moshe, look, we got way more than enough. Tell the people to stop bringing gifts because there's way more than we'll need. So they were coming out of Egypt wealthy. I'll tell you what. So just because Rob did a great video on the stones, and I know it just is glancingly mentioned in this Torah portion, but he had a beautiful video that breaks down, hey, you as a believer, you want to be on the breastplate of the high priest, right? And Yahushua as the high priest, right, would be wearing what the high priest wears. If you think about like his role as mediator and as high priest, and so he bears the names of the children of Israel. And Ephesians 2, we are grafted into the commonwealth of Israel as believers in Yahushua. And so the lost tribes are coming home bearing the name of the Messiah. And that's what's so exciting. So let's check out this video that Rob made several years ago.
This just like leaped off the page at me. This whole issue of the breastplate stones when we did this in our regular house church with Kevin and Amanda, and that Rose Guide to the Tabernacle book on pages 68 and 69, it illustrates the high priest. And actually, I think I have that same picture. If you go back to the Virtual House Church Week 20 study page, yeah, you'll see a very similar picture. If you scroll down toward the bottom, it shows the high priest, what he's wearing, and shows the ephod and the stones. On page 69, it shows the layout of the stones. It had 4 rows of 3. On the top row of 3, you had the beryl, the topaz, and the ruby. Now, each one of these stones. Let me back up. First of all, you had the onyx stones that were on the shoulders of the high priest, and on the left side, there were 6 of the tribes of Israel were engraved on the stone on his left shoulder, and 6 on his right shoulder. The stones on the stone on his left shoulder included the tribes of Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. The tribes that were engraved on the onyx stone on the right shoulder included Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, and Naphtali. Okay, and we don't have time to get into it now, but we're talking about in Isaiah that the government shall be on his shoulders, talking about Yeshua, our high priest, our Messiah. The government of who? The government of what? The government of Israel shall be on his shoulders. He's a high priest. He has Israel on his shoulders, 6 on his left, 6 on his right, on his shoulders. If he's wearing the same, remember that everything that Moses was being told here in Exodus regarding the building of the tabernacle, the various things in the tabernacle, the outfits of the priests and all that, that was a mirror of something that was in heaven. He was showing him a blueprint. He said, as you see it, do it. And that's why he gave such, Moses didn't just make stuff up and, hey guys, let's make some cool outfits and, do it any old way. They were modeling something in heaven. We know that our priest in heaven that intercedes for us is in the order of Melchizedek, and apparently he must have a very similar outfit on if the high priest on earth was a model of something in heaven. We only have one high priest. That's Yeshua. So are you on the shoulder? Well, if you are, then you got to get grafted into one of these guys if you're not blood related and accepted Yeshua. Now, on the stones, the beryl represented Zebulun, the topaz, Issachar, and the ruby, Judah. That's on the top 3 rows, the top 3 stones, the top row. The second row down was the diamond, sapphire, and emerald. The diamond represented Gad, the sapphire, Simeon, the emerald represented Reuben. Now, the third row is what really caught my attention. I'll tell you why in a minute. The third row down consisted of the amethyst, the agate, and the jacinth. The amethyst represented the tribe of Benjamin, the agate, the tribe of Manasseh, and the jacinth, the tribe of Ephraim. Fourth row was the jasper, onyx, and beryl. The jasper stone represented Naphtali, the onyx represented Asher, and the beryl represented Dan. Now that's what's on the breastplate of the high priest. You'll notice that there's not a 13th stone called the church. Again, our high priest in heaven is Yeshua. Are you on the breastplate? Well, if you are naturally blood related to any of these tribes, you were cut off from that tree unless you accept Yeshua as your Lord and Savior. Then you are a natural branch that is grafted back in. Okay? So if you're blood related to a tribe, you are a natural branch that has been cut off that can get grafted back in. If you are not blood related to any of these tribes, then you are of the Gentiles. You are of the wild olive tree. But you are a wild branch that is grafted in to the cultivated olive tree. And I believe that we get grafted in through the tribe of Ephraim, based on the blessing that Jacob gave over Ephraim and Manasseh. And you see that Ephraim becomes a multitude of nations. Nations, the Goyim, the Gentiles. So it is my belief, and I'm open to correction, I could be wrong, but my belief is that if you and I are not already blood related, because if you are blood related, again, you were a branch to this, but because you don't believe in Messiah, until you accept him, you are a natural branch grafted back in. If you were never a natural branch by blood, then you were never part of the tree to begin with. So you weren't cut off, but you were never part of it to begin with. So you are a wild olive tree branch that gets grafted in. And it is my belief that you get grafted in through Ephraim. That's the 2 sticks again of Ezekiel 37, in my opinion. So, are you on the breastplate or not? And what's cool about the breastplate is it's over the high priest's heart. It's close to his heart. These are the people that are close to God's heart. They are the olive tree. They are Israel. They are the 12 tribes that are right over the heart and on the shoulder of our high priest. Again, the New Jerusalem is called the bride of the Lamb. Clearly, the angel tells John that what you're seeing right here, John, that's the bride of the Lamb. Well, as believers, you and I, in our Christianese lingo, we call ourselves the bride of Christ, right? Well, in order to be the bride of Christ, who is the Lamb, you have to be the New Jerusalem. So there's only 12 gates in the New Jerusalem, and they're all named after the 12 tribes of Israel, so which gate are you going to go through? If you believe in dispensationalism and that you're separate from Israel. Sorry, dispensationalism doesn't work. I believed in it for about 40 years of my life, but don't believe it anymore because it's absolutely anti-biblical, in my opinion. Contradicts Romans 11, Galatians 3 and 4, Revelation 21, and pretty much the whole entire Old Testament. It violates so many scriptures, it's unbelievable. But I couldn't see that before. I see it now. And I'm going to ask you again, are you on the breastplate? Now, here's what really caught my attention. If we go to Ezekiel, and maybe we'll have time to play the scriptures later, they talk about Lucifer in Ezekiel 28. It's part of the half-Torah portion. I'll just go ahead and read it. In verse 13 in particular. Verse 13, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold, the workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created. Now, this scripture has always had some interesting meaning for me, but for a totally different reason. Back in high school and shortly after high school, there were a lot of evangelists being brought to our church that were against rock music, and they were playing all the music backwards, and it's fun to smoke marijuana, kill your mother, and all this stuff. They were claiming that these secular rock band music, what this music was saying if you played it backwards. Well, of course, they were against secular rock music, but they were even more against Christian rock music because, Christians shouldn't have any part of that. So Christians trying to be like the world, that was even worse. And so, we'd have to burn all our Petra and Striper and all our Christian rock albums and stuff like that all the time. And this is one of the scriptures that they would point to, because it says the workmanship of thy tabrets, and thy pipes. They would say, Lucifer is a drum with pipes. See his body. He was a musical instrument. And even at a young age, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So I went and looked it up and found where it says tabrets and pipes, it was actually, it meant a setting for jewels. And I would point that out. And if you go to the Virtual House Church Week 20 page, I show a whole bunch of different Bible translations of that same scripture. Ezekiel 28. Was it 28? What is it? Ezekiel 28, verse 13. And you'll see different ones there. Like the New International Version actually gets this one right. It says, your settings and mountings were made of gold. And you see in the New Living Translation, all were beautifully crafted for you and set in the finest gold. See, the tabrets and pipes is talking about a setting for jewels. King James, the way it's written, I didn't get it back then. I got it enough to say that all this garbage is saying, because anything that had a drum in it was wrong. You're going to hell if you play drums or you listen to anything with a drum in it. That's what they're trying to tell me. And I was like, that's not what it says, guys. It's talking about setting for jewels. I didn't understand this then, but Lucifer himself, as the anointed cherub, apparently had a breastplate similar to the high priest. But here's the catch. The breastplate of Lucifer only had 9 stones, not 12. If you can look through the other translations I have here, it's just showing how different ones rendered it. But you'll see pretty much most of them, except like King James, talks about the tabrets and pipes really as a setting for jewels. Well, look at the 9 jewels that he has. He has the, let me see, I'll pick, let's see, International Standard Version. He has the ruby, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and carbuncle. What's missing? The amethyst, agate, and jacinth. Lucifer was missing the 3rd row, which represented Benjamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim. Now, like, when I saw that, I was floored by that. I was like, wow! And I still don't have my mind completely wrapped around this yet, but I know there's a nugget of gold there that's really important for us, because it's like intentionally Lucifer was given a breastplate that was missing the great plan of God. God always knew that he was going to pick Abraham, that he was going to pick a select group of people that came out of the Tower of Babel, I believe through the person of Eber. Eber is the father of the Hebrews, who is an ancestor of Abraham. God picked Abraham. Now, if 70 nations went out from the Tower of Babel, basically God said, okay, tell you what, Lucifer, you can take 69, I'm going to take one. Give it your best shot. All right? 69 to 1. If 70 went out, one of them being the Hebrew people through Eber, those would be the Hebrew people that God would select Abraham, and he would become the father of the chosen people that would eventually become the 12 tribes of Israel. And the devil had everybody else. Okay, so everybody else, the Goyim, the Gentiles, they fall into the category of Ephraim and Manasseh. These were the children of Joseph through his Egyptian wife. Okay, these are the multitude of nations. These are the Goyim. These are the Gentiles. That God had a plan to get them back from the devil, and the devil he wasn't privy to this. He didn't have these stones. He didn't understand this. But the high priest did. The high priest has all 12 stones because God picked Paul, Shaul, who was from the tribe of Benjamin, to go reach the Gentiles. How crazy is that? Like, again, I still don't have it all figured out, but, like, my head's exploding with possibilities and ideas. Just how amazing that third row on the breastplate, because I believe I'm in that third row. I believe I'm grafted in through Ephraim. But Benjamin was the one that later produced Paul, who went out and reached the nations who were represented by Ephraim and Manasseh. And Lucifer didn't have that row of stones on his breastplate. But, praise Yahuwah, Yeshua did. And it was modeled on the high priest. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. All right. So just one more little interesting thing that I wanted to share with you guys before we wrap up Virtual House Church this week is remember, the topic of the willing heart and how I'm kind of stuck on it this week. I think it's really just beautiful, the willingness. Well, whenever you look up what that word is in Blue Letter Bible, you can see here the word is pronounced nadib or nadib. And, the first little definition here is inclined, willing, noble, and generous. But if you look at some of the other meanings and how it's used in the scripture, a willing heart is also referring to a princely heart in rank. And I think it's beautiful, just the parallel here we have with being fellow heirs with Christ, and becoming, a nation of kings and priests through being grafted into Israel. And when we have a willing heart to serve our Father, look at how some of the uses of willing heart, which is first pops up here in Exodus 35 in our Torah portion. Whoever is of a willing heart, a nadib leb, a nadib heart, let him bring it, right? But then later on, you see the same word willing or nadib is used for princes throughout the scripture. So what a beautiful parallel to when you have a willing heart to serve the Most High. In a way, you become prince-like, or, in a nation of kings and priests, princely is a good, term to have applied to you, right? Prince, prince, nadib is used for prince. And so isn't it interesting that Hebrew word for willing heart, a willing lev, is also used for prince. Just an interesting tie there of the noble character of the heart when you are willingly giving something for the Most High. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up Virtual House Church. So just a couple reminders. If you guys have not yet, please go over to the new Virtual House Church YouTube channel and subscribe. Clink. And it's a place we're going to start transitioning and start streaming more. We're doing it dual streams for now, to get people, adjusted to going over here for our Virtual House Church streams. Some plans we have for the Virtual House Church YouTube channel is we're going to be editing some of the best clips. We're going to try to have more guests. I want to throw a call out there for you people who have interesting suggestions for people who might want to come on and co-host with me for Virtual House Church. Any teachers or local fellowship people that have fascinating things about the word and they're eloquent enough to come on here. I'd be interested to hearing who you think would be a good guest for Virtual House Church in the future. And also, just have a lot of plans to grow the Virtual House Church, continuing to use it as a platform to honor the Most High, to keep the Shabbat with you guys, and to, of course, take advantage of the resources Rob left behind when he passed away. And thank you guys for joining the Virtual House Church this week. It's always a blessing to be on here with you. I'm just a fellow student thinking through some of these concepts and sharing just some of the things that peeked out to me as interesting or important. And with that said, Shabbat Shalom, guys. And we'll end off with the Aaronic blessing. So until next time, Shalom.
יברכך יחוה וישמרך, יאר יחוה פניו לך וחונקה, יישא יחוה פניו לך ויעשה לך שלום, יישא יחוה פניו לך ויעשה לך שלום, ויעשה לך שלום, ויעשה לך שלום. Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Yahuwah te bendiga y te guarde. Yahuwah haga resplandecer su rostro en ti y tenga de ti compasión. Yahuwah, alce su rostro sobre